All right, welcome in everybody to another deep dive. If you're here, well, you know the deal. You're here to absorb some serious knowledge, right? Get right to the good stuff.
Absolutely, no time wasted.
And today, oh man, today we're strapping in for a supersonic ride through history. We're talking about Concorde, the legendary passenger jet that, well, defied limits, really.
The ultimate symbol of speed and luxury.
Absolutely. And to guide our journey, we've got some incredible insights courtesy of the National Museums Scotland. Their materials are fantastic.
Really fascinating stuff.
So what we're going to do is dissect this story, get to the heart of what made Concorde so unique, why it mattered, and the impact it had.
It's a story that I think still captures the imagination today.
For sure, for sure. I mean, for almost 30 years, think about it, people were routinely jetting across the globe at twice the speed of sound.
Huh.
That's mind-blowing even now.
It really is. And it's more than just, getting from A to B quickly.
Aye.
It's about pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible, right? Changing our perception of time and distance.
Totally, totally. And that's what we're going to explore. So let's rewind a bit. Where did this whole crazy ambition even begin? Was it just like some engineer waking up one day with a wild dream?
Well, not quite, although there was definitely a sense of ambition and a thirst for pushing boundaries. Our source points us back to the 1950s, actually, in Britain. Post-war optimism.
Yeah.
Technology seemed limitless, and the idea of supersonic passenger flight was starting to take hold.
Okay, so the seed is planted, but it doesn't become Concorde until France joins the party, right?
Yeah.
What brought those two nations together on such a, let's be honest, audacious project?
Money, for one. Sharing costs on something this massive was pretty essential.
Makes sense.
But beyond that, it was really a strategic alliance.
Okay, yeah. Pooling resources, the best minds in both countries.
Exactly. Think about it. The top engineers, designers, manufacturers, all collaborating. It was a powerful symbol of cooperation, too, especially during the Cold War.
Wow, I hadn't thought about it in that context. So two nations united by this shared vision, and the name itself, Concorde, reflects that partnership, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And it's more than just a name. It carries a lot of meaning. According to our source, the name Concorde actually came from French President Charles de Gaulle himself.
Oh, wow, so it goes all the way to the top.
It does. And in French, Concorde signifies agreement or treaty. So it's not just catchy, it's a constant reminder of that Anglo-French partnership that made the whole thing possible.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So we've got the treaty, the teams are assembled, the name's in place, but now it's time to turn this dream into a flying machine. So talk us through that. When did this incredible concept actually take flight?
March 2nd, 1969. That's the date etched in history. The first Concorde prototype, 001, takes to the skies in Toulouse, France.
Toulouse, huh? The heart of European aerospace.
You got it. And the quote from the French test pilot after landing is fantastic. He simply said, "The big bird flies."
The big bird flies. Huh. You gotta love that. Simple, to the point. I mean, what more do you need to say, right?
Exactly. But it's amazing to think about the weight of those words. This wasn't just any plane. This was groundbreaking stuff.
Totally. And of course, the British weren't far behind with their own prototype, were they?
Nope, not at all. Just weeks later, actually, prototype 002, built in Bristol, takes off from Filton Airfield.
All right, so both sides delivering.
And then, to really show off this joint achievement, both prototypes are displayed together at the Paris Air Show in June of that same year.
Oh man, that must have been a sight to see. Imagine the crowds, the excitement, the sense of like the future arriving.
I know, right? Like a glimpse into a whole new era of travel.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got proof of concept, right? The prototypes are flying. But when did Concorde truly flex its muscles, showing off its speed and range?
Well, that moment came on September 26, 1973. Mark that date down. It was a French Concorde that made the first non-stop supersonic crossing of the Atlantic.
From where to where?
Washington, D.C. to Orly Airport in Paris.
Okay, so coast to coast, essentially. And how long did that take?
Hold on to your hat. 3 hours and 33 minutes.
No way. 3.5 hours to cross the Atlantic. That's just wild.
And to really put that in perspective, it was cruising at an average speed of 954 miles per hour.
That's just, I'm speechless.
Oh.
I mean, even today, that's insanely fast.
Just shows how far ahead of its time Concorde was.
It really does. So the prototypes are a success. It's breaking records, crossing oceans in record time. It's got to be time to get paying passengers on board, right?
Exactly. The next logical step. And that moment arrived on January 21st, 1976.
All right, mark it down. Commercial supersonic flight begins.
British Airways kicked things off with a flight from London to Bahrain. And at the same time, Air France started its service from Paris to Rio de Janeiro.
So two iconic routes connecting major hubs.
Absolutely. And while it was still a very exclusive experience, this marked the beginning of a new era in air travel.
And exclusive it was. It wasn't just about getting somewhere quickly. It was about the whole Concorde experience.
Oh, totally. This was about luxury, prestige, and pushing the boundaries of what air travel could be.
And it created some almost mind-bending experiences, didn't it?
It did. Our source mentions a pretty famous one, the ability to leave London at breakfast time and arrive in New York before breakfast U.S. time. Sir David Frost described it as being in two places at once.
Wow, that's crazy. You could literally gain time by flying.
And not only that, each passenger received a special certificate to commemorate their supersonic flight.
Oh, that's cool, like a little piece of history.
Exactly. A reminder that you'd broken the sound barrier.
And what about inside the cabin? What was that like?
Well, it was unlike any other plane. It was designed to enhance the experience of supersonic flight. There was even a Mach meter in the cabin, showing you exactly how fast you were traveling relative to the speed of sound.
Wow, that's so cool. Imagine watching that as you're cruising through the air. Talk about a visceral experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the service. The source uses the phrase, living the high life. Champagne, caviar, lobster. It was all about fine dining and the ultimate in luxury.
Wow, the whole 9 yards.
And it wasn't just for the rich and famous, although they were certainly frequent flyers. Royalty flew on Concorde too. The Queen always sat in seat 1A.
Seat 1A, reserved for the Queen. That's a pretty iconic image. But for us mere mortals, what was the price tag on this experience?
Well, let's just say it wasn't cheap. In 2003, a standard return ticket from London to New York cost a whopping 6,636 kells.
Oof, that's a serious chunk of change.
But as our source points out, it wasn't just the price of a flight. It was the price of saving time, of prestige, of experiencing the future of aviation.
You're paying for a whole experience, really.
Exactly. And for those who could afford it, it was truly unforgettable.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the operational side of things for a moment. Those Concorde fleets racked up some impressive stats, didn't they?
They did. For example, British Airways Concordes from 1976 to 2003 completed nearly 50,000 flights, with over 140,000 flying hours and 140 million miles traveled. And get this, over 1 million bottles of champagne were served on board.
1 million bottles of champagne. I guess when you're traveling at Mach 2, every flight's a celebration. But sadly, as with all things, this incredible journey had to come to an end. And I think that tragic Air France Concorde crash in 2000 was really the beginning of the end, wasn't it?
Sadly, yes. July 25th, 2000, a date that casts a shadow over the future of Concorde. That crash at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris was a terrible tragedy.
A real blow to the aviation world and, of course, a devastating loss of life. What happened in the immediate aftermath?
Well, both Air France and British Airways grounded their Concorde fleets right away. Alpha Alpha, the British Airways Concorde that had been in service the longest, made its final flight from JFK to Heathrow on August 12, 2000.
It must have felt like the end of an era, even then.
It did. But there was still a glimmer of hope. In 2001, after extensive modifications and a massive £17 million investment, Concorde briefly returned to service.
Okay, so a second chance. But the world had changed a lot after 9/11, hadn't it?
It had. The aviation industry was hit hard. People weren't traveling as much, especially for luxury experiences.
Yeah, there were bigger things on people's minds, understandably.
And as our source explains, Concorde started flying with empty seats. The economics just weren't adding up anymore.
Right, the demand just wasn't there.
Sadly not. And with operating costs rising and the planes themselves getting older, British Airways made the tough decision to retire their Concorde fleet on April 10th, 2003. It was the end of an era for supersonic passenger travel, at least for the British.
What a bittersweet moment. The end of Concorde, but such a legacy left behind. And I remember the farewell tour. It was really something special, wasn't it?
It was. People lined up everywhere to catch one last glimpse of this iconic aircraft. It shows the deep connection Concorde had with the public.
It really does. And of course, Scotland has its own unique piece of Concorde history, right? Tell us about GBOAA.
GBOAA, Scotland's Concorde, a special aircraft indeed. It was actually the very first Concorde to enter service with British Airways back in January 1976.
Wow, the first one. Talk about making history.
And over its lifetime, it flew for a remarkable 22,768 hours and 56 minutes, made 8,064 landings, and went through 6,842 supersonic cycles.
Hold on, supersonic cycles, what are those?
Well, it's when the aircraft accelerates and decelerates through the sound barrier. Each time that happens, it puts immense stress on the airframe. So 6,842 of those is a testament to its strength and durability.
Wow, that's a lot of stress. And its routes, they weren't just limited to hopping back and forth across the Atlantic, right?
Nope, this plane saw the world. According to our source, it flew to New York, Paris, Bahrain, Miami, Calcutta, Auckland, even Barbados.
That's a pretty impressive travel log. But all good things must come to an end. What happened to GBOAA when it was retired?
Well, it made its final journey to the National Museum of Flight in East Fortune. And it wasn't a simple affair. First, it was carefully moved onto a barge for a trip down the Firth of Forth along the east coast of Britain.
Okay, so a grand farewell tour, even in retirement.
Exactly. And then came the intricate land transport, moving it across fields to its final resting place at the museum. It was quite the spectacle.
And a fitting end for a truly remarkable aircraft. Now, as we look back at the whole Concorde story, what really stands out to you? What are the key takeaways?
Well, for me, it's the audacity of it all. Sustained supersonic passenger flight, the sheer speed was revolutionary. And then there's the luxury, the whole experience of flying Concorde. It was unlike anything else.
Right.
And finally, it's about pushing boundaries, breaking barriers, technologically, and also in terms of what we thought was possible in aviation.
You nailed it. It's a story that just captures the imagination even decades later. And for our listeners who, like us, love to get to the heart of fascinating topics, hopefully this deep dive into Concorde has delivered some real aha moments.
It's not just about a fast plane. It's about human ingenuity, ambition, and a whole chapter in the history of flight.
Totally agree. And it leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? What other seemingly impossible feats will we conquer in the years to come? What will the future of travel and technology hold? I think Concorde, despite its eventual retirement, is still inspiring us to dream big.
That's the legacy it leaves behind. It's a reminder that even when something groundbreaking comes to an end, the spirit of innovation lives on. And who knows what incredible advancements await us on the horizon.
Well said. That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Concorde.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring.